welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 560 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, not only asked to agree with me, I'm asked you to hear me out. From a storyline standpoint, this is the perfect Super Bowl. It's the perfect Super Bowl because there are so many different storylines, so many different quests, so many different angles you can take while talking about this Super Bowl. There's so many points that you can pin that you can essentially say, this is what I will be looking for in the Super Bowl. You know, obviously you want a good game. Obviously, you want a high scoring game. Obviously, you want a nail biter. But for media members, for podcasters, for people that talk about the game, writers, journalists, it's all about the narratives. It's all about the storylines. And obviously those storylines change and narratives change within the game. But going into the game, there are so many different points that you can connect yourself to that can make this game worthwhile. You have the Patriots going up against the Seattle Seahawks, a rematch of the famous Marshawn Lynch non-pass on the 1 yard line that obviously was picked off from Malcolm Butler. You have Drake May, one of the young quarterbacks in this league, and is this going to be the year that he is crowned one of the best quarterbacks in the league with the Super Bowl? Getting a Super Bowl before someone like Josh Allen, before someone like Lamar Jackson, before someone like Joe Burrow, before someone like Caleb Williams, before someone like Jaden Daniels. Is Drake May going to arise as one of the top tier quarterbacks in this league? Sam Darnold. We talk about him frequently, but Sam Darnold, the quarterback that seemingly his career was thrown away when you get drafted to the Jets and you go to Carolina, then you go to San Francisco, then you go to Minnesota and have a rejuvenated season. However, you're kind of cast away for a younger player, and then you go to Seattle and you're finally in the Super Bowl. There are so many storylines. The quarterbacks. You have Mike Vrabel, who obviously was a player for New England and won Super Bowls as a player. Can he be the first player coach to win a Super Bowl for that team? And obviously you have Mac McDonald, was with the Ravens, now with the Seattle Seahawks, one of the best defenses in football, one of the best offenses in football. Like, there are so many storylines. But as I say that, to predict the game is easy and hard at the same time. I say that because when you look on paper, and yes, I understand that the game is not played on paper, but when you look on paper, this is an easy prediction. When you look at how the teams stack up, when you look at the road to the Super Bowl, when you look at just how both these teams are playing collectively together as far as offense and defense for both teams, it is clear who should win the Super Bowl. It is clear that the Seattle Seahawks have looked better this playoff run than the New England Patriots. Obviously, Seattle had the number one seed in the NFC. You go up against a depleted San Francisco 49ers team and you blow them out the water like you're supposed to. Then you go up against a Rams team and you win that nail biter. Sam Darnold hasn't looked great, but he hasn't looked terrible. The defense has looked ferocious. Kenneth Walker III has looked great. On paper, this should not be a contest because when you look at the Patriots, even though they've had sort of a tougher schedule or sort of a tougher road to the Super Bowl, you had to go up against the Chargers, and while Justin Herbert hasn't played well in the playoffs seemingly ever, their defense is really good. Then you have to go up against arguably I'm not going to say arguably. And arguably the best defense in football in the Texans, you win that. And then you have to go up against another top three defense in football in the Denver Broncos, and you win that. On paper, this shouldn't be hard to predict. On paper, Seattle should win this game. And it's also when you look at the Patriots, they haven't been it doesn't seem like they've been balanced this postseason. Obviously, in the regular season, they were great. Drake May was a finalist for or finished second in the MVP. We'll talk about the NFL awards after I give my Super Bowl or after this segment. But they've looked great. But in the playoffs, the offense hasn't looked really good. Drake May hasn't looked good. He's had a fumbling problem. Even though they haven't really lost most of those fumbles, he's fumbled a lot. And it just hasn't been balanced. Their defense, however, has been ferocious. You made Justin Herbert look terrible. You made CJ Stroud cut his hair. You made Jarrett Stidham look like Jarrett Stidham. Their defense, the Patriots defense has carried them throughout this playoff run. And that is, in my opinion, when we're giving a prediction of this game, that is how the Patriots could win this game. Now, I will say this. Obviously, every game is an individual game. Obviously, some things that happened in last game might not happen this game. And what I mean by that is this game will look a whole lot different. This game could look a whole lot different if we get the Drake May that we have had all season, at least in the regular season. That Drake May can change the dynamic of this game. However, as I say that, and I'm thinking Drake May has only thrown over 300 yards once, and that was against the Baltimore Ravens late in the season. However, he's played complementary football. As good as his defense is playing, he's been playing well. Stephon Diggs has been playing well. Ramondre Stevenson, he had a fumbling problem in the beginning of the season. That seemed to have cleared up. And obviously, Travion Henderson's been good. Hunter Henry's been. It's. I understand why people would pick the Patriots to win this game. Even though their offense hasn't looked great, the road to the Super Bowl defensively has been dominant. Their defense has looked like the superior defense all like this entire playoff run. On top of the fact that Mike Vrabel has been incredible coaching these games. I'm very interested to see that chess match that Mike Vrabel and McDonald's going to have because one thing that the New England Patriots have done very well in this playoffs, obviously outside of the defense, is run the ball sort of. And you're going up against one of the better run defenses. In fact, one of the best defenses in football in Seattle. But they're battle tested when we talk about they've been going. I I'm not going to say should have, but there were moments where it looked like they may lose to the Texans, they may lose to the Denver Broncos, and they prevailed. I think that this is going to be a great game because I think it's hard when you have these two teams. You know, I was thinking about when's the last time that there was a game that was extremely bad, but in the Super Bowl level, like what the last Super Bowl that was extremely bad, but it was projected as it was going to be a good game. Um, let me check that because I'm thinking I have an idea, but maybe that one came after. Because right now in my head, the one that I'm thinking for sure is okay. Here we go. Maybe Tampa Bay when they beat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-9. Yeah, the one that I was thinking was New England and Rams. With Super Bowl whatever that is, 2019. Um, I think that this is going to be a good game. I think this is going to be a fun game. It's going to be an exciting game. And this game means a lot and will dictate a lot for multiple people. Like I said, when we talk about someone like Sam Darnold, I think this will solidify a couple of things when we talk about Sam Darnold. It solidifies the idea of fit matters, and it's important to be. It's important where you're drafted. It's important the system that you're in. It's important that the people that are making the decisions around you is competent enough to make those decisions. And it's also a testament of not never really giving up on yourself, because it's very easy to go team to team to team and just feel like it's not going to work. That usually doesn't work out in your favor. um as well as, I mean, there's a lot of people on both teams that have sort of redemption redemption storylines, like Demarcus Lawrence. All the time he spent in Dallas, and then he goes. The first thing he says is Dallas is going to be home, but I know I'm never going to win a Super Bowl there. Well, this is your chance. You have Leonard, that he's emerged as one of the best defensive players in the league. On the you got the Patriots. You got, like I said, Drake May, and last year the Patriots can complete one of the greatest turnarounds in league history. Last year they were one of the worst teams in football by far. This year that they clearly are in the Super Bowl and could hoist the Lombardi trophy. Uh, and Drake May, obviously, when people were looking, especially last year, they were like, Drake May is a clear second or clear third or fourth when we talk about the draft class that he was in, because they were saying Jaden Daniels was better. They were saying Bo Nix is better. There were people still questioning if Caleb Williams is better. Obviously, Caleb Williams was number one. Um, and Drake May has that chance to solidify that is arguably one of the greatest draft classes we've had. Because think about it. Jaden Daniels was in the NFC Championship last year. This year, Bo Nix, things could be different if he didn't get hurt, but he led the Denver Broncos to the AFC Championship. Caleb Williams was a game away from the NFC Championship this year. So that is an incredible draft class. You have Stephon Diggs. Didn't really work in Minnesota, didn't work in Buffalo, and he's coming off, didn't work in Houston. Obviously, he got hurt coming off a meniscus tear, and now he's back and he's in the Super Bowl. First time he's ever been in the Super Bowl in his career. But let me stop beating around the bush. Um, I'm going to go with the team that I feel has looked better this postseason, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. I think that is going to be a much closer game. And while the Seattle Seahawks have looked good, we talked about this when we talked about this majority of the playoffs, right? These playoff matches, they're going to expose your weaknesses. They're going to expose what you're not good at, because it just a team has all their focus on you, and they're going to exploit what they can exploit. And when you go back to the NFC Championship, Seattle and the Rams, Seattle was able to exploit the Rams' biggest issue, which was their secondary. The Rams had one of the poor secondaries in football. However, their defensive front is really good. Obviously, their offense is really good. And they were able to lack of a better term, blanket their secondary. Well, that was not the case in the NFC Championship. And obviously, we saw the Seattle Seahawks win. The Patriots, as great as he's been, and this is going to sound crazy, but as great as he's been, the offense, Drake May, the offense essentially has been the weakness for the Patriots all season. Obviously, it's been good and it's gotten them to the Super Bowl, but their offense has not been off. Like if you just look at their offense, it is not a Super Bowl caliber offense. Drake May, I know he finished second in MVP, but again, he only has one game this year where he's thrown over 300 yards, or he's thrown 300 yards. Period. Just one game this year. On top of the fact of, again, you're trusting a lot of, I'm not going to say unknown people, but you're trusting a lot of people that may not be trustworthy on other teams or have shown that they aren't the most trustworthy at this point of their career. Whether you're talking about Ramondre Stevenson, whether you're talking about Stephon Diggs, again, he's coming up, he came off a season ending injury in Houston. When you talk about Seattle, Sam Darnold, as great as he's been, he has been his some of his decision making has been the greatest. I know that I just heaped his praise, and honestly, people have been heaping his praise all season, rightfully so. But his turnover ratio is kind of crazy. He turns the ball over a lot. I think what Sam Darnold does, and this is kind of in if you really think about it, this is a accumulation of his entire career in a sense of when he was with New York, one of his biggest problems was he would anticipate pressure that wasn't there, i.e., seeing ghost. So what he would do is he just let the ball go. He'd let the ball go way too early, and that caused a lot of interceptions. Well, then you saw throughout the rest of his career, he held the ball a little too long, especially in Carolina, especially in Minnesota. He held the ball way too long, which meant that caused more sacks. Now he holds the ball as long as possible and still throws interceptions. Now don't hear me say that and think that he's just bad. That's not the case at all. Sam Darnold has been incredible this year, and I'm the question is the Patriots defense going to be able to generate generate opportunities for the offense to get easy scores, because that's been the underlining reason why they've been able to win. I mean, if you look at their games, they haven't. In fact, hold up. If you look at their playoff games, the final score was 16-3, 28-16, and 10-7. And when you look at the 28-16, which is obviously against the Texans, CJ Stroud had like five turnovers, five, six turnovers. When you're not able to generate a lot of turnovers, their offense hasn't been good, i.e., against the Chargers and against the Denver Broncos. If the defense is able to generate turnovers, which, like I just stated, you may be able to against Sam Darnold, then they have a shot. They have a chance of winning. If you're able to get a lot of favorable possessions, if you're able to get a lot of favorable uh, field position due to turnovers, you have a shot. But I feel if you look and Sam Darnold has absolutely no turnovers and Drake May has absolutely no turnovers, I would say the Seattle Seahawks won, because the Seattle Seahawks, I trust some of their players more than I trust the New England Patriots. Even though the New England Patriots have been great, Christian Gonzalez has been one of the best defensive players. Carlton Davis has been great. Barmore has been good. Their defense has been stout. But I also trust Jackson Smith and Jigba. I also trust Cooper Cup. I also trust Kenneth Walker III. They've been incredible throughout this playoff run. And I think it's going to be hard pressed to stop. It feels like, again, I know that they kind of played a depleted 49ers team, but this kind of feels like a locomotive. And I don't know if the Patriots are going to be. If this turns into a shootout, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks all day. If it's a low scoring game, which I believe the Patriots kind of want it to be, that's in favor of the Patriots, as we saw with their road. And now think about it, the Seattle Seahawks, it was 41-6 and 31-27. I feel if you get those type of numbers, 41 and 31, you're beating the Patriots. Because I don't know if this offense, especially against the Seahawks defense, I don't know if they're going to be able to score that much. Um, I'm going to go with Seattle. Now, the only thing that gives me pause is obviously everything I said about Sam Darnold and the turnovers and, how good the Patriots have been. But it kind of goes back to the last time Seattle won the Super Bowl was against the Denver Broncos. And while it wasn't Peyton Manning's best year, that Broncos defense was incredible. And the offense wasn't too bad either. Like the offense was kind of doing this thing. And Seattle beat them 43-8. That was 2014. That was a crazy game. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Seattle. I'm gonna go with Seattle. I think Seattle is just a better team. And it's going to be hard pressed for the Steel or for the Patriots to really stop that team. So those are my predictions. That's my prediction. Moving forward, I want to congratulate all the award winners for the NBA or NFL honors. Um, I was right about majority of them. I was wrong about the coach of the year. Mike Vrabel won. Shout out to Mike Vrabel. I thought it was going to be the Seattle Seahawks head coach. Comeback play of the year. I thought it was going to be Dak Prescott. They gave it to Christian McCaffrey. Understandable. I thought that Puka Nakua was going to win offensive player of the year. They gave it to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Completely understandable. I was right about the offensive rookie of the year, giving it to T Mac. Obviously, if I'm not mistaken, Miles Garrett won defensive player of the year unanimously. The defensive rookie of the year went to Carson Schwessinger. um, yeah. Oh, and shout out to Bobby Wagner, man, winning back-to-back Man of the Years. And they announced this year's Hall of Fame inductees. It was Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, and Roger Craig. All definitely deserving. Now, obviously, the biggest indictment on the Hall of Fame was obviously Bill Belichick not making it and Robert Kraft not making it. Uh, I mean, I think they're gonna make it, but shout out to those players. They said that this was the closest since what 2005. This was the closest MVP race since 2005. Here's my thing though. I feel like I'm not saying that you pick who you want to pick, right? And obviously you have freedom to do whatever you want to do. You have freedom to pick whoever you want to pick. My thing is this. I don't understand why some people it's like their goal to zig when every single person is zagging. I'm not saying that you can't have individualism. I'm not saying that you can't pick what you obviously necessarily feel is right. But and obviously this is a wider scale, right? When we talk about the presidential elections, and it was Trump against Kamala Harris. And then you had that sector of people that picked Kanye West. Look, Kanye West, the artist, is probably one of, if not my all-time favorite artist of all time, right? What he did, the first, college dropout, late registration, um, graduation. Obviously, I think my favorite album of all time is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasies. Absolutely love it. What Kanye as an artist, I get that. There's no way in heaven and hell I think that Kanye West should be running the United States of America. And there were multiple people that thought that. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know if it would have changed. What if those people either voted for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? You know what I mean? Like, why are you zigging that hard when everyone is zagging? You know what I'm saying? Bring it back to here. There was two players all year that was almost neck and neck for MVP. There was Matthew Stafford and there was Drake May. Obviously, you had Josh Allen was in the mix and everything, but the two names that we essentially had was Matthew Stafford and Drake May. In what world do you think that there was one person that gave Justin Herbert a first place vote? And this is also coming off the back of how close this race was. Now, I'm not saying that if they would have voted for Sam Darnold or something, not Sam Darnold, if they would have voted for Drake May, it would have been different. But it's just like, what in God's name did Justin Herbert do all season that was better than Drake May and that was better than Matthew Stafford? If we're being completely honest, what did he also do that was better than Josh Allen? It's like I don't understand people like that, bro. Like I get you have your own opinions, and I want everyone to have their own opinions. I want everyone to do what they want to do. But there's no way that you could be as important as an NFL MVP voter. I can't vote for the MVP. You have to, as important, they entrusted you to be an MVP voter. And you looked at this, that which means that you had to essentially look at the entire season. You had to essentially pay attention, and you came up with Justin Herbert as the best player in the league. Does that make any amount of sense to you? Oh, I'm sorry. He had a third place vote, but like what are we doing? Matthew Stafford received 366 points with 24 first place votes, while Drake May had 361 with 23 first place votes. So imagine Josh Allen had, oh, Jesus Christ, man. I don't, you don't know. Justin Herbert had a first place vote. My thing is, bro, what did you see to make you think that Justin Herbert had a better season in any metric? Because you can probably say, well, he did worse with less, or he did better with less. What is better? What are we talking about? I don't know. But congratulations to Matthew Stafford. Congratulations to all the winners. Congratulations to all the uh, Hall of Fame inductees. You know, the one person that I'm not going to say nervous, but I wasn't too sure about was Luke Kuechly. I didn't know if they were going to induct him in the Hall of Fame, at least first ballot, because of just the amount of years that I think he only played 9 years, which isn't long in the NFL. Um, but I am glad that they put him in because there's not many there's not many people better. There's not many quarterbacks better. Oh, maybe 13 times. Yeah, there's not many defensive players better than Luke Kuechly in NFL history. Um, so I'm glad they got that right. But congratulations to all the award winners this year. And inductees. So, one of the most important times in the NBA just passed, and that is the NBA trade deadline. The NBA trade deadline, outside of the buyout market and uh, stuff like that, this was the last time that you could really shape how the season is going to go for you. Obviously, teams can go on huge runs and teams can get players back from injury or whatever, but this is the essentially the last time until the off season that you can get a player of quality via trade from another team and shape just how you want the rest of the season to go. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about some winners and some losers when we talk about what happened in this trade deadline. Because quiet as it's kept, it was a extremely active trade deadline. We don't usually see that, especially big names, but it was active. We already talked about Jaren Jackson Jr. getting traded to the Utah Jazz. We already talked about James Harden and uh, Darius Garland getting traded, essentially getting swapped with the Cavaliers and the Clippers. So I want to break down some more winners. And obviously, I'm gonna get a bunch of winners out the way, and then I'm gonna get some of the losers. I think one of the biggest winners, is the Washington Wizards. Now, let me explain. If you go on social media, if you listen to some of the media pundits, especially in Washington, D.C., and you listen to some of the national media pundits, one thing that you are hearing is this isn't your typical Wizards move. And I wanna address that for a second. Because the question is, what is a typical Wizard move? A typical Wizard move is they get a star that is well out of their prime. It's not just Wizards. I think it's the Washington. Just we do that. One person I can remember is Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson, he was well beyond his prime, as well as Donovan McNabb, and we gave so much for him. We gave so much for Peterson. It's like they're out of their prime, but we're paying them, and the assets that we gave for them, you would think that they're still stars. The Wizards do that a lot as well. That's why you said this is the typical Washington transaction, but this is different. The reason why I say this is different is because what the Wizards were able to get compared to what they were able to keep. When you get a player, obviously we know about the injury history or whatever, but when you get a player like Anthony Davis, when you also get a player with the caliber of Trae Young, and you're still able to keep your first round pick, something that usually does not happen for Washington. And this first round pick could be a lottery pick because what we're hearing is they're probably going to sit Anthony Davis and Trae Young for the rest of the season. This is not a typical Wizard move. On top of the fact that you have a young core, and I know that they're saying Anthony Davis is upset because Washington's not going to talk a extension with him right now, but it's just like, bro, you're injured. Like, build your stock back up. Uh, I feel like Washington's a big winner. Now you have two players that, and I understand the history. It's definitely not likely that they'll be able to stay healthy. But if they're able to stay healthy, or if they're able to stay healthy for a good amount of time, this can change the fortune of the Wizards. Obviously, you have a lot of young players like Alex Sarr and Keyshawn George. You have Bilal Sabali. You have Trey Jones, Bud Carrington. Like, this is a very young core. And now you have two vets in Anthony Davis and Trey Young that are former All Stars. Obviously, Anthony Davis is a former champion. This could change the fortune of the team. And all you really had to give up was Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, Tyus Jones, not Tyus Jones, Marvin Bagley, and a what a first round pick next year and like a Golden State pick in a couple. It's or three first or second round pick. Come on, bro. That was a great move. That was a really good move. I think that now obviously I understand they need to get healthy and health plays a huge role in if this is going to be a good transaction or not. But even if they're not healthy, I think that this is great because now you're able to like you didn't really have to give up much. Your future isn't tarnished. Remember Trey Young, you didn't have to give up one first round. You didn't have to give up a first round pick for him. You didn't have to give up a pick for him. They got Trey Young for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. So it's not like your future is ruined if it doesn't work out. But if it does work out, there's a lot more gain. There's a lot more to gain, you know? Um, I think that as much as people don't like, I know the Wizards have had a very poor history when it comes to just acquiring talent uh, via trades and just place to win. I mean, I don't think they've won a playoff series since John Wall and Bradley Beal was there. But I do think that this could be a new period because even still, the Wizards they also got Jaden Harvey, they got D'Angelo Russell. I don't know how much he gonna play, and they got Dante Exum. So you know we got some bargaining chips moving forward, and we have some pieces. So I think that Washington is a huge winner in this cycle of this cycle of or this trade deadline this year. I think that they knocked it out the park. Another winner actually is okay. I know I talked about it, but the I think the Cavaliers are a winner for, and it's hard for me to say that because that means that I have to put my faith in James Harden in the playoffs, and that has never been the thing to go, the thing to do. But I do think that I think that James Harden gives the Cavaliers exactly what they need right now. They need somebody that they're able to capitalize or get the best out of their young players and take the ball not necessarily completely out of Donovan Mitchell's hands, but it doesn't Donovan Mitchell doesn't have to do everything. Donovan Mitchell doesn't have to essentially be everything for especially when you look at Darius Garland, as great as he is offensively, you know, as great as he is offensively, he doesn't really neither he or Donovan Mitchell really make anybody better. They're just offensive stars. And while James Harden is a great offensive star, he's a better passer than both Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. So you're going to be able to get Evan Mobley involved. You're going to be able to get Jared Allen more involved. I think that this is that's they are a winner for sure in my opinion. Um I I also think that the Oklahoma City Thunder, as much as like as much as you don't want to, some people don't want to see their, with all the draft picks that they have. I don't know how. Look, I understand that patience is not necessarily the easiest to have in basketball. I understand that sometimes you can't have patience, especially when you have maybe an aging star, maybe a very expensive team. I understand that. But the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers just gave up on Jared McCain is crazy. He was a top draft pick, not he was a high draft pick last year, and he before he got hurt, he was balling. Now I understand that also is because Tyrese Maxey wasn't necessarily playing, and they didn't have Edgecombe at the time. Now that they do, it's kind of hard to find a space for Jared, and the fact that Jared McCain, he kind of came back and he's trying to get the feel for the game again, especially in a new role because he was playing a lot of minutes before, you know, before this season, and now that you have players in front of you, he does not playing as much. So he's trying to get his feet up under him, and you trade him to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I don't know if people remember. Once it was pretty much determined that the Oklahoma City Thunder was not going to break the NBA record, I came on here and I said what their issue was. Now, I don't think their issue was necessarily going to either cost them a championship or not, but their biggest issue was they didn't really have anybody outside of Shea Gilgeous Alexander and J Dub that can put the ground on or put the ball on the ground consistently and get themselves a bucket. And if we're really being honest, Shea is light years better than J Dub in that category. But outside of those two, they didn't really have anybody. Isaiah Joe is a good complementary catch and shoot player, but he's not that. Neither is Alex Caruso. He's a great defender, and he can play point guard, obviously, but he's not dropping 30. He's not really an offensive savant like that. You're able to now, if this is all obviously contingent on Jarrett McCain getting back to what he was before injury. And it's not like he had a meniscus tear. It's not like a ACL tear. I know all the body's different and everyone's meniscus is different, but you know. But if you're able to get the Jarrett McCain that he was playing before injury, you have the perfect backup point guard for this Oklahoma City Thunder team. The same Oklahoma City Thunder team that is looking to go back to back in winning championships. I don't know why the 76ers just gave up on McCain like that, but that's essentially what happened. Um I think there are when you look at the grand scope of this trade deadline, there are some players that are winners. Like I think when you look at Vucevic going from Chicago to Boston was huge for him. Now you actually have you're on a team that you have a shot. I don't know if he's going to be there past the season, but you know, hmm. I think the Pacers, bro. The Pacers, you this is clearly a gap year, and you were able to keep your first round pick this year, and you're able to get probably a top five center in the league in Zubac. I don't know how the hell that happens, but uh, shout out to the Pacers, man. They got arguably one of the best centers in the league, and this is after giving up uh Miles Turner this offseason. So yeah, man, I don't know how the heck they did that. And they only had to give up Benedict Matherin, who wasn't even happy in Indiana, as well as Isaiah Jackson and two first round picks and a second round pick. And one of those two first round picks is not their lottery pick for this year. So I don't know. Boy, that kind of bleeds over to the losers. And there are a lot of them. Let's first talk about one of the biggest losers, and I'm going to say the Dallas Mavericks is one of the biggest losers, not just because of this trade deadline, but obviously you have to go back to the Luka Doncic trade. The fact that you traded Luka Doncic, star player in this league, top 4 to 5 player in this league, for Anthony Davis and a bunch of other players. And Anthony Davis was obviously the center point of what Dallas was getting. And he did not play a single game with Cooper Flag and Kyrie Irving together. Not one. You trade you obviously Nico Harrison's not there, but anymore because he got fired. But the goal the talking point, the selling point was we're going to build around defense. And if you squinted hard enough, you could talk yourself into saying that this was a good trade for Dallas. You can talk yourself up into saying, well, yes, you just traded away a generational piece. You got back a former champion. You got back a defensive stalwart to play alongside Kyrie Irving. Obviously, at the time you didn't know, but you got the number one overall pick to get Cooper Flag. You can kind of squint hard enough and say, that wasn't that bad of a pick or that bad of a transaction. Well, now what do you have to like if you're Dallas, you're essentially punting on that. You're completely not essentially, you're completely punting on that move. I'm actually shocked that Clay Thompson wasn't moved. And I don't to be completely honest with you, I don't know. It's maybe not. He might not come back this year, but I don't know if he does come back. If Kyrie Irving is going to be on this team anymore, it looks like that they're doing a complete rebuild and they're trying to build around Cooper Flag, who has turned out to be an incredible player, obviously at the number one overall pick. But you traded away Luca, and damn near every piece that you traded him for, or let me say, the centerpiece that you traded him for, is gone. You traded him away the very next trade deadline. That is insane. On top of the fact that you trade him away and you didn't even really get an important first round pick. Like you didn't get Washington's best first round pick. So it's just like if you're Dallas, what do you have that you are one of the major losers in this trade deadline? Like that's just obviously that was the Nico Harrison era, but still, you don't have Luca, and I don't like to compound, but you have to when we talk about this. Another loser, Memphis Grizzlies. Please come to the front. You know the phrase you can't half step. Either you have to go all in or go all out. For a year and a half to 2 years now, you have been diligent on maybe not saying that you're trying to rebuild, but all of your actions is saying rebuild. When you trade away your third best player in Desmond Bain, this season at the trade deadline, you trade away your second best player, some argue first best player, in Jaren Jackson Jr. to Utah. You had one more domino left. One more domino. And honestly, I'm going to compound this loser, the Memphis Grizzlies and the Miami Heat. How is it that we are past the trade deadline and John Morant is still on your team? How is John Morant still a Grizzly? I know that you're saying that you're saying that you didn't get the right amount of that there wasn't much hype around John Morant. You didn't get the package that you wanted, but what are you trying to get? You're trying to do a full rebuild. And you obviously have a player that's not happy, which then goes back to Miami. Bruh, how is that Miami the only team in the Eastern Conference that did not make a trade move at the trade deadline? Miami always has the reputation of, being holier than thou. And it's that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense that you have a star player in John Morant and you didn't, and clearly it didn't look like it took much to like. Obviously, I don't know the intricate reasons for everything, but I don't know how the hell the trade deadline passed and John Morant is not a Miami Heat and he's still actually a Grizzly. So to me, both of those teams are losers. I don't. That's how are you the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, how are you the Miami Heat and you don't do a move? You're already not good enough to really compete for anything. John, Bam Adebayo is a great second, please. He's not good enough to be a number one option on a championship team. I don't know why the hell you keep holding on to Jaime Jaquez like that. He's good, but he's not like that. And John Morant was right there. The report came out saying, yo, they're not even working with John Morant. They don't John Morant, they don't care what John Morant says. They just want him off the team, and he is still on the team. Make that make sense. Yeah, those are two losers. Um, an obvious loser is the Sacramento Kings. Like, how is it that you have DeMar DeRozan, Russell Westbrook, Demonis Sabonis, and Zach LaVine on the same team, and not one of them was traded? Like the Kings, man, the Kings are nasty, bro. That team just, oh boy, I don't understand how you can justify that, man. But one of the biggest losers, and the one that I've been holding out talking about, has to go to every single team that was involved in the Giannis sweepstakes, and that's also including the Milwaukee Bucks. But the team that I want to focus on is the Golden State Warriors. To go from stumbling, well, going into the trade deadline with the assumption that you were the front runners to get Giannis Antetokounmpo, holding out trade talks for someone like Jaren Jackson Jr., for someone like DeAndre Hunter, because you were uber focused. And I understand that. I completely understand that. You're uber focused on getting Giannis. And I'm not saying that was a bad decision. When you have a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo essentially on, like, you could possibly get him, all your focus, the entire organization's focus is to get that player. So to go into the trade deadline thinking that you have a shot to get Giannis and end up getting, or you leave the trade deadline with Kristaps Porzingis is rough. This is the same Kristaps Porzingis, might I add, that since last year's playoff and majority of his career, actually, he's been dealing with health issues slash injuries. That is the Kristaps Porzingis that you traded Jonathan Kuminga and um, Buddy Hield for. Now, in all actuality, if Kristaps Porzingis is able to stay healthy, I think he'd be a perfect match for the Golden State Warriors. With his shooting, his length, his ability to rim protect, which is different. I mean, if you look at just his shooting, then you can say him, Al Horford, and Quentin Post are essentially the same players. But I think Kristaps Porzingis is a better rebounder and a better shot blocker than those two players. Uh, but again, it goes back to health. He needs to be healthy, and we have not seen that for a minute. In fact, he's been inconsistent when we talk about health wise just this year for the Atlanta Hawks. So, in all actuality, I think that it could possibly be a good move. However, I'll give you an analogy. Do you ever think that, let's say all the married people, right? You ever think your spouse say they're going to cook for you? They're going to cook your favorite meal, right? Uh, they said when you get home, you're going to have your favorite meal ready. Your spouse says, "Hey, I'm going to cook your favorite dinner." So once you get home from work, it's going to be there. And you had a long day at the office. You had a long day at the office. And your favorite dinner just so happens to be steak and potatoes or something. Let's just say steak and potatoes. So on your mind, all day, you're thinking, I cannot wait to get home to my spouse and those steak and potatoes. That's what's sitting on your mind all day. You get home and the steak and potatoes that your a spouse said that they were going to make turned out to be banquet dinner, a banquet microwavable steak and potato dinner. Doesn't that just kind of kill the kill the joy? While yes, it's still serviceable, it's still technically steak and eggs. I mean, steak and potatoes. You can still eat it. It's not what you thought it was going to be. That's kind of how it was for Golden State. I think that Kristaps Porzingis is very suitable when healthy and a cool pickup. But when you're riling up the fan base, thinking that you're going to get someone like Giannis, and you're saying, Golden State's one of the front runners, Golden State's one of the favorites to get him. And then you hear someone like Brian Windhorst saying that he hasn't seen a package deal better than the one that Golden State had. And you end up with Kristaps Porzingis. You see the disappointment. And let me talk about the Milwaukee side of this. Why? I'm confused because all the signs point to Giannis was done in Milwaukee. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I guess you're gonna try this off season, maybe? I don't know. But it's like you have absolutely you're no better. You're not in any good position to compete for a championship, even with Giannis. So I don't know. I don't know. Oh, and another loser before we exit this is the Clippers. Do you know how crazy it is to have the turnaround that the Clippers had, being one of the by far the worst team? I think at some point they were like 6-21, to completely turning their team around this year and one of the best teams in the league, to then trade away your two of your three best players. Like Kawhi Leonard's having a resurgent year, having one of the best years he's had in years. James Harden's having a great year. Zubac's having a great year, and you trade Harden and Zubac, and then how are you going to then convince your best player that, oh no, we're still trying to compete for a championship? How? Like how? I don't know, man. But those were some winners and some losers from the trade deadline. Uh, Obviously, it's we still don't know. Some of these players haven't played yet, so we'll have to see. But that's my initial thoughts. So, lastly, before we go, I want to give another non-basketball segment. I wanted to talk about the Fall Off, the album that J. Cole dropped, which has all but been promoted as J. Cole's final album, J. Cole's retirement album. Now this is very sentimental to me because I grew up obviously a big J. Cole fan, a big I was in the blog era, so obviously J. Cole, Kendrick, Drake, you had Mac Miller, you had Big Sean, you had Wiz Khalifa, obviously Kanye was still doing his thing, Rick Ross. Like that was J. Cole will forever be one of my favorite rappers of all time. Will forever be one of my favorite artists of all time. Um, so to hear that the fall off was going to be essentially his retirement, and I know that they say that musicians very rarely, if ever, retire. J. Cole feels like that one exception. Like the way he's able to just duck off and you don't hear nothing from him. He's one of those exceptions. Um, I didn't know what to expect. And then you're hearing that it's gonna be a double disc. Like, ooh, that's tough. It's you run a fine line between a double disc. Like it can either just be too much and over bloated or a little just underwhelming. It's very hard to get that perfect balance with a double disc, especially when you have 12 songs on each disc. Like 24 songs and comes out that the album is an hour and 40 minutes long is that's tough. But um as somebody that has probably listened to the album now 4 times straight, well, three times straight through, fourth time, you know, kind of gone back to different songs, ran it back a couple times. Uh as an initial thought, I think that this is I'm not going to say perfect work of or piece of art, but I think that it is an incredible piece of art, an incredible retirement album. I think that out of 24 songs, I love 23 of them. And the 24th one I think is okay. I always said when they talk about the whole big three, here's my um take on it. I always said that the best rapper out of the big three, and obviously the people that don't know who the big three are, it's J. Cole, Kendrick, and Drake. I always said that J. Cole's the best rapper out of the big three. Like if you just want someone that can rap, that's J. Cole. If you want somebody that can give you the best album, the best storytelling, the best um sequencing, that's Kendrick Lamar. Like Kendrick Lamar has historically classic albums. uh Albums that are sort of undeniable. But I said if you want a hit maker, if you want to make a hit, if you want to have a quick hit, that's Drake all the way. Hotline Bling, uh God's Plan, like, that's Drake. I feel that obviously this is still new and I have to sit on it. So, oh, I have to sit with it longer, but I think that crazily, like surprisingly, this is J. Cole's best album. I'm somebody that's a fan of Forest Hill or 2014 Forest Hill Drive. I'm a fan of most of everything that he's dropped. I think that Born Sinner is great. I think that For Your Eyes Only is underrated. I think KOD is underrated. I think that the Fall Off is probably his best work. And I hope that J. Cole is one of those artists that say they're retiring and don't. I know Jay-Z did that. I know, well, Andre 3000 kind of did that. Now he's making flute albums. But if I were to give this a review, it doesn't feel like it's bloated, in my opinion. It doesn't feel like it's bloated. It feels like it has bangers. He's rapping all throughout this joint. This is the best singing I've heard from J. Cole. J. Cole can't sing to save his life, but this is the best singing I've heard from J. Cole his entire career. He has the bangers. This joint works in the car perfectly. And if you want this really shows why J. Cole is one of them ones. Um man, it sucks if this is it sucks if this is his last album, but if this is his last album, he went out with a bang. Um, if I were to give it like out of 10, I'd give it like a nine, maybe nine and a half. That's how, after four listens, essentially, that's how much I love this album. And obviously, there's a little bit of biasness because I am a big J. Cole fan. I know a lot of people turn their back on J. Cole after the apology. That's their right to do whatever they want. But yeah, I, the fall off, multiple years in the making, definitely paid off as one of the best albums that I've heard from J. Cole ever. And I know it's just what, February, but it's gonna be tough for me to think of it's gonna be really tough to dethrone this album. Even though I did like Don Tolliver's album, the Octane has been incredible. Um, ASAP Rocky's album, in my opinion, it had its moments, but this J Cole album is one of them ones, in my opinion. And it's crazy because I feel like I might be contradicting myself a little bit because it's like I'm not really a fan of long albums like that. And an hour and 41 minutes is long. 24 songs is long, but it doesn't feel like it when I'm listening to it. It feels like I'm listening to a very cohesive body of work. And it feels like, mm. You ever watch Invincible? Like the show Invincible? And it'll be like an hour. You'll watch the show and then the credits come on. It's like, wait a second, that was an hour long. Like that's how this feels. It feels like, oh man, it's an incredible album by one of my favorite artists. So shout out J. Cole again. If I'm gonna give it out of 10, I'm gonna give it right now a nine and a half. I love some of the concepts that he tried because J. Cole tried a lot on this album. It worked for me. I when I first turned it on and I heard the first song, I'm like, yo, am I listening to the right album? Is Apple Music messing with me? Like, what's going on? Yeah, this and then, man, it was just, yeah. Congratulations, J. Cole. Incredible album. And there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate all of you guys. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely means a lot. Also, for my DSPs, as Apple Music, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your DSPs, please follow, please rate, please share, please comment. I'm trying to grow the podcast unilaterally, and I cannot do it without you guys' help. So please follow, subscribe, rate, comment, all that. For my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, I post pretty much daily. Please follow. I don't mind going back and forth. I don't mind debating. It just means that you have an opinion and that you're listening to me, both which I appreciate. However, if we're debating, if we're going back and forth, or if you leave a comment, why not follow? You know what I'm saying? Please keep it respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth. I don't mind debating. Just please follow. It definitely means a lot. Until next time, much love.